Welcome to take 6, which I truly hope is the final take with this, but I wanted to take some data that would be somewhat representative of what we'll collect today in class and show you how to use Excel properly. Everybody by this point either should know how or needs to know how to make a clean looking graph and actually use Excel. So thought I'd do this online, show you a few pointers, make it easy for you. Okay. So first thing, let's sort our data. Easiest way to grab data if it's in a column is just click at the top. And as a reminder, you can work with two screens, two half screens side by side. You can have your phone running and be operating on a computer. However you want to work, just remember you can pause, you can take a look at things. So Microsoft calls these ribbons. So find the data ribbon. Under that there should be something called sort. And then in this case it doesn't really matter, but usually you want to sort by your X data. So let's sort by our X data, go smallest to largest. Make sure you have the data headers box clicked, otherwise it's going to try to sort the volume of ML, which is not a number, so that will be a problem. So sort that, and you can see now we're in number order. We want to break this into two graphs, as we discussed in the pre-lab, where there's going to be a part where the absorbance is increasing, a part where it's leveling off. And it should be fairly obvious if we just kind of pan down. 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. All right, so clearly here's where our flat part is, our break. So if you highlight that section and see on the edge, if you hold your cursor over any part of the edge, it changes from like a thick plus sign to a funny four-arrowed cross. So let's just bring that over. And then my own personal OCD, I like to be able to know what I'm looking at, so I'm just going to carry that over. If you want to resize the columns, you can always double-click on one of the boundaries, and I'll do that for you. Okay. So now we have our two different graphs that we're going to graph out. We've sorted our data, we split it, we can graph it now. So let's just go ahead and insert, and here I'll do something weird so it looks bad. It usually does anyways. So we want to insert a graph, choose this little one with the dots. We're scientists, we want to see our data. If there is a trend line to be put through, we want to put it through ourselves and make sure it has some meaning and not just a sketchy line. So we want to take the one with the dots, and if you typically just drop this down, you're going to get a bunch of junk. This is junk, so let's just clean it all out. So right click in the middle, choose select data, and then just remove all of these. X, 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 X. Hopefully yours look cleaner than mine. I intentionally made mine look bad. But whatever's there, just remove it. It's easier to start fresh anyways. Click add, and we don't need a series name. You can usually leave that blank. And then for the X, you can either click in the box and then choose your X data, or I'll show you the alternate in Y. You can, if it's in the way, you can shrink it down and choose your corresponding Y data, and then you can blow it back out, and that's fine. And hit OK. We got half our graph. We want to add the second part of our graph, so let's go ahead and do that while we're here. And just to show you, you can do this more than one way. Choose my X data. Do not choose the headers. Excel cannot graph volume of iron. It will change your graph type and totally mess up your graph. And then here with the Y, if you're not going to do the little expand and contrast thing, make sure you delete out this little bit of junk coding. If you don't delete out that junk coding, it'll give you an error message. So just as a FYI, highlight the corresponding Y data. You can see this is probably cleaner data than our class will look. Go ahead and hit OK. And hit OK, and we have the data plotted. Now, this is all one set of data, so there really is no legend to be had, so let's just delete that. It doesn't make any sense on this particular graph. And if you're really looking at journals and published scientific data, graphs don't have titles, contrary to what some of your teachers may have said in the past. So I'm just going to delete this out. Now, they have long figure captions with de facto titles in them, but not on the graph. So I'm going to get rid of that because I'm training you guys to be professionals. Likewise, I've never actually, no, that's not true. Rarely, and certainly not in scientific journals, do you see grid lines. So in training you guys to look like scientists, because why wouldn't you want to look like a scientist? We look awesome. Delete the grid lines. The other thing is this is all one consistent data set. So it might be a good idea to have it all be the same color. So if you right click on that, and then left click on Format Data Series. Let's make these things blue. So click on the little thing that looks like a paint bucket. Or maybe not. Let me see where it is. I think I got the wrong thing. Where? Marker? Ah, marker, sorry. Pick the color. Let's match it. Hopefully that's the right blue. And solid line. The fill, we also want to make the same blue. Hopefully I guessed right. Let's see how I did. It's a little bit darker blue, but I think we can live with it. We could always change the other one to the same blue if you were OCD about that. We want to add series titles, so click on this little plus. We want to have our axis titles, and then you can just kind of click twice in there, and you get your cursor down there. And typically you want to write what this is, so this would be volume of iron 2 added. And typically in parentheses you would have your units, and milliliters is correctly little m, big L. I know it looks funny, but that's the proper way of writing it. Sometimes you see people do it the incorrect way, but nevertheless, I'd prefer you to do it the right way. On the left-hand side, you'd put the absorbance, and you would put the nanometers of light that was used. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what we're using today. I'll put 520. I don't think that's right, but you get the right idea. Put whatever is in the lab and whatever was recorded in your notebook there. And then you have your axis titles, and we're almost done. We just want to add the trend line. So remember, these are two different data sets. So let's right-click on one of them and say Add Trend Line. The default is linear, so we're in good shape. There's a couple things you want to do. We want to display the equation on the chart because we need that to solve what we're going to for today. You can also see a couple things. It's a dotted line, which looks a little goofy to me. Where is my line options? Solid line on the little paint bucket. Let's go back to the actual data part. And then you always want to extend the line. That didn't go solid on me. So, and for doing this, you have to be really careful. You have to look at your units on the x-axis. So in this case, I think going forward, maybe 2, and backwards 2 looks okay. So let's say that. Yeah, that's okay. Probably a little far, too far back. But this gives me an excuse to show you how to clean data. So I'm going to leave that there. And I'm going to go ahead, and again, I want to change this to a solid line. I apologize, I thought I got this. Solid line. Dash type, none. How about that? Ah, there we go. Whoa, that's thick. Let's make it a little bit thinner. There we go. That looks nice. And do the same thing here. Format data series. Oops, nope, I'm sorry. We want to add the trend line. And I might as well just start here. Let's make this line not so thick. And we don't want dashes, we want line. Go over here, linear, and we want to go forward a little bit, backward a little bit. I forgot to change the color. That's a kind of a not so pretty orange. Let's make that blue. I'm going to go back here. I want to display my equation on the chart. And also, contrary to what you might have been told in the past, if you're really looking at data, you should never force it through the intercept at 0. Even if it's supposed to scientifically be there at 0, you want to know what your measurements are, because that's going to show some kind of systematic error or maybe random error with your experiment, and it's important to see how close it really does hit to the origin. Okay, so you pretty much have a done graph at this point. There's one thing I would like to show you that's not quite cleaned up, and it's a little bit tricky if you haven't done it before. Is if you look, you can see that the default for Excel is always to have the axis run through 0, 0. And sometimes it's the top of your graph, sometimes it's the middle of your graph, and a lot of times if you're using whole numbers or positive values, it is in the proper place. So I want to shift this down. Now, if you want to shift where the x-axis is, you have to format the y-axis. And this is hard, and it's funny with the way this lines up. But you want to, the easiest way is to right-click on a tick mark and say Format Axis. You want the, where am I looking here? You want the horizontal axis should always cross at whatever the minimum up here is. So if the minimum is -0.2, we want to match that. So let's just do that and see if that works for me. See, and now we've reset the axis to be at the very bottom of our screen. So that's a good thing. Maybe drag these over so it's easy to see. If you even want, and if you wanted to be a little bit more scientific about this, you could always change Y to absorbance, and you could change X to volume, just so it's crystal clear what you have when you have that. But your graph is done. As far as the math goes, remember, the point where these two lines cross, X and Y are identical, so Y equals, set those two equations equal to each other, solve for X. That gives you the volume of iron at which the stoichiometry is perfectly aligned between the iron and the phenanthrene. Do your mole-to-mole ratio, and you are done with the lab. Have a wonderful day. I hope this helped. Thank you.